How do you say your surname?
Gwyther.
Gwyther.
Gwyther, yeah. Like fiver. Oh yeah. A mixture between fiver and father. Gwyther. Gwyther.
Mr. Alex Gwyther, you alright there? Feeling we watch?
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, is it going?
Yeah.
Post-show delirium.
Hello, Mr. Alex Gwyther.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, you?
Very well, thank you. So we're here at the Underbelly,
Yeah.
where you're doing your own one-man show called Ripped.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. How did it come about?
So, I always wanted to write a show. I always wanted to write about masculinity and write a play about it in some way. I just never was sure of the vehicle in which I can explore the narrative and I suppose construct a narrative. It was when I was doing a lot of theatre and education, and I was touring a show on sex and relationships to sixth formers and colleges, and my final monologue was where my character confessed to being raped by the alpha male and of the play. And that monologue was always met with laughter, finger pointing, and whenever I asked the students, if that was a girl through gritted teeth confessing she'd been raped, would you laugh? And they would always say no, because it would be a girl. And so for me, that was like the mind blow of masculinity, and that was the catalyst then for me to explore a little bit more as to the statistics of male rape and some of the information surrounding it, the legalities around it as well, and that was
How long ago was that?
2 years, I think.
Right.
2 years, so that was the initial conception, and then 2 years later we're here.
So from that, you obviously, because this is not your story.
Unfortunately, no, so it's not autobiographical or anything like that, no.
But you've obviously then done a lot of research into the character, or characters like this.
A lot of search into male trauma, into a lot of research into masculinity, if it's to be called that. A lot of research into sexual assault and violence against men and against women. Yeah,
because you say this, so it's not just about raising awareness for this type of assault. You want to kind of explore trauma in various forms.
Yeah, I mean, I want to explore and challenge people's perception of masculinity and how we frame what it means to be a man. I had a really interesting, when I was flying on the Marne, I had a really interesting conversation with a guy who just said, toxic masculinity, why can't blokes just be blokes? And I said, well, what is a bloke? He goes, someone who fixes things. It's like, well, I don't fix things. Does that mean I'm not a bloke? What is a bloke? And he kept on, I wasn't trying to kind of interrogate. I was in a way, I suppose, but I was just trying to challenge that, what does it mean, blokes? Because he's coming from the heteronormative, standpoint of a man's a bloke, which is a heterosexual male who, drinks on the weekends, watches sports, fix things, and it's so stereotyped. But so what's your question?
I want to know really what's the responsibility?
So I suppose so that's what I wanted to do, and then but in terms of obviously Jack is Ripped has come from a standpoint of Jack has been raped, and so it's the exploration of that trauma. But I want to explore trauma in general with men, and whether it's a cancer diagnosis or a divorce, or anything that has been as intense as male rape, but it's just an exploration of why so many men choose not to come forward and speak about things that have happened to them in the past, and the pressures put on young men to live up to what I think are outdated ideals of masculinity.
Exactly. And what have the responses been like? Have people come up to you afterwards or got in touch with you?
Yeah, lots of people have got in touch with me. We've had fantastic responses on Twitter, and people sending me private messages, people sending me messages through the website. We've had quite a few audience members unable to kind of speak afterwards or leave the space.
Yeah.
Thing is, I think what Ripped does, and from speaking to lots of people afterwards, people latch on to certain things. So some people will latch on to this idea of the pressures put on men to be a certain way. Some people will latch on to the flashbacks and the trauma. Some people will latch on to the rape. Some people will everyone latches on to something in Ripped which speaks to them, which for me is really, really great, because hopefully it's appealing to a lot of people and it's relevant to a lot of people.
And how has this changed you as a person?
Oh my God. It has. I was speaking to my girlfriend last week, and I was speaking to Duncan. So I wrote this in partnership with Slivers Manchester, who the CEO of that, Duncan Craig, has been so supportive and helpful, especially when I was writing and editing the show. He said to me that doing a play like this will change you, and that was last week, and it has done. I think it's just made me so much more open, so much more sensitive, so much more emotional, just like issues regarding men and regarding, I think, just being a human. I don't know, does that make sense? I just feel, I don't know, maybe it's the play as well. I just find myself quite sensitive and quite emotional. I think coming out of this as well, it certainly changed me as a human being, and I think hopefully for the better.
And let's talk about your writing, because you've written one-man shows before.
Yes.
So is that something that's a niche for you, that's something you definitely enjoy?
I do enjoy it, yeah. I think I love I think writing a one-man show is storytelling in its purest form. And I think it's so exciting to be able to construct a story with that in mind. It's such an exciting thing to do. It's such an exciting thing to perform as well. I mean, yeah, it's hard work and it's nerve-wracking, but it's so rewarding being able to tell a story on your own, especially if you've written it as well, because you're not only, because that passion then, that you're not just delivering as the writer, you're then being able to deliver that as the actor, and you'll be able to take it over the finish line, and it's really, really empowering. But I mean, with Ripped, same with my last one-man play, especially with Ripped, I didn't write this for me. Like, you've got to put your writer's hat on first, and I was always open to not playing it. Maybe Jack, the character, had to be older or younger or bigger or smaller, or could I do the character justice? So I did go through a whole kind of process of wondering whether I would suit the character. So hopefully I had that.
And although it's a one-man show and obviously you've written it, it still feels like a collaborative process, because you've worked with a director and you've worked with a lighting and sound designer. So tell me more about them and how they came in on board.
So the producer Robin Rayner produced my previous one-man play, Our Friend's the Enemy, which we brought to Edinburgh 6 years ago. So I've known Robin since then, and I approached him about working on Ripped with me, just because Robin's like a guru of the Fringe and he's a fantastic producer, and I already had a good relationship with him. The director is Max Lindsay, who I watched Max direct Philip Ridley's Angry at Southwark Playhouse, and I loved Max's work, so I got in touch with Max and asked him for a coffee and spoke to him about Ripped, and then we just developed a relationship then, and then Max came on to direct it. But even though it's a one-man play, like, you can't write the theme tune and sing the theme tune, you can't do all of that. Like, I would never write, act and then direct something on my own, or write, act and produce something. You can't do that. You have to. This is always a collaborative process. And then we've got the design team, James Witcher on sound, Jack Weir on lighting. It's quite a small team. Have I forgotten anyone else?
But then,
I don't think I've forgotten anyone else.
So Jack Weir, I've seen his work before recently with Dust, which went to Travaco Studios, and it's brilliant. Especially with the music, because the music kind of really informs your piece and your storytelling.
That's great. Yeah.
And I think it like I say, it just enhances the whole experience for you.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, we wanted to also keep it really, obviously, due to budgets, due to the space, because it's very small. Everything had to kind of be minimal. And I really wanted to just focus on the storytelling and making the writing and the performance itself. I've seen some one-person plays where there's been no set, no lighting, no sound, and it's just completely captured me. Yeah. So I know that is achievable, but I think for dealing with something like this, trauma, and we have flashbacks, and we have the journey that Jack goes on, these new experiences. We thought that sound and lighting would really kind of help intensify those moments. When he steps into the gym for the first time, or steps into a heavily male-dominated pub for the first time, and that kind of sensory overload. That's where the sound and lighting comes in.
And when you talk about intensity, like, how is it for you as a performer, being in that mindset for hour? How do you unwind afterwards? That's what I want to know. Well,
this is where my excuse comes in for slightly mumbling and being a bit delirious and forgetting of the questions, because I came on stage 20 minutes ago. Usually I try I try and get away from the venue. So I put my headphones on. I've got a post-ripped playlist on Spotify that I've constructed, which is kind of like really, really upbeat music. I think NWA Express Yourself is on there. There's some just really kind of Michael Jackson on there, some really upbeat tunes, and I just walk away from the venue.
Yeah.
And I find that just helps me to kind of detach a little bit and get away from the venue. There have been some shows where it's been slightly more emotional. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know, and sometimes it can. I remember one show, there was a girl at the front of the audience who was audibly like crying and having shallow breaths, and that really it was towards the end, which was the climax of the play, and that really knocked me for six emotionally.
Yeah.
And I came off the stage, and it was like I'd seen the play for the first time. It's interesting because you go through the process of writing it, but then you also go through the process of like the rehearsals and the marketing, and then what happens is you sometimes become a bit desensitized to and you're like, oh yeah, we're doing a play about male rape, and you become quite desensitized and almost a bit detached, and you're looking at it very kind of mechanically, and you're like, okay, I'm in the character now, I'm out of the character. And that show, I think it was like our 11th show or something, really knocked me, and it was like the first time I'd seen the show and the impact that it really had on someone. And so I had to kind of, I went back home and had a half an hour to myself and just kind of recalibrated. I called my granddad and asked how his day was, and he started moaning about how people like me who use this thing called online banking are closing bank. So sometimes just like talking to someone outside of the festival and outside of the play is really, really useful as well.
And the play feels so authentic. Have you spoke to survivors? Is that where you've drawn that from?
Yes. I spoke to 3 or 4 survivors, through Survivors Manchester, through Stay Brave, and through I can just put in the word out there and meeting up with people and talking to them about their experience, talking to them about their views on it as well, and their views on masculinity, and because there's no single answer and there's no single viewpoint on subjects like this. Like, everyone has their own take, and it's so personal to everyone else. So it was really important to speak to people who, were survivors of sexual assault. I'm coming from a position where I'm fortunate enough not to have been sexually assaulted in my life. So for me, when it was about writing the play, it was that I wanted to approach sexual assault and male rape in the most sensitive, truthful and realistic way as I could.
Yeah. And
obviously that involves speaking with people, and so again, Duncan from Survivors Manchester has been so important and so supportive with as well.
And when you touched on the reaction in your story from the police and how they handled Jack's scenario.
Yeah.
Is that typical of
I think
just an example?
It depends where you are in the UK.
Yeah.
Because, let's say if you were, I don't know, in somewhere in the southeast or in London where police have perhaps been trained and charities are really, really active, then...
So sorry, to put it in context, in your story, the police were less sensitive,
so there's a voicemail earlier on by a kind of hyper-masculine police officer who is just kind of...
quite unsympathetic.
Very unsympathetic, just says, and in a sense, I mean, for me the subtext is, well, you're probably gay, you probably, it's probably that something went a bit wrong, it's not rape, it's not a female. Which unfortunately can be the approach and the response by some people in authority. It depends where you are in the UK. Like I was saying, if you're somewhere in a city or somewhere which is heavily populated, where charities have been able to train people and break stigmas and raise awareness, police officers are slightly more trained. If you're maybe in a more rural area or somewhere else in the UK where police haven't been trained, then fortunately there's a possibility that you still might be met with a response which is not as approachable, not as helpful, and that's also why I wanted to write Ripped as well.
But I guess it's not just necessarily like you said, the voice of the authority. That in your character that could represent anybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Again, I'm a heterosexual male, and it's really interesting saying to my friends that I was writing a play on male rape, and a lot of the responses were just like, "Fuck, do you want to do that for me? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah,
Let's swear." Okay, so that was a shot.
You're swearing your show.
I do know my show right now. Yeah, and it was really interesting, just those initial responses to male rape and what we think it is and what people perceive it as. And the majority of perpetrators of male rape identify as heterosexual. For me, that's like another kind of screaming alarm as to what is going on with masculinity, if that's the thing. A lot of people just shrug off, be like, it's just an issue in the gay community or the LGBTQ community. And it's like, well, is it though? I don't really think it is. And for me, I also wrote Ripped for my heterosexual male friends, and I wanted them to come and see a play, and I wanted for them to kind of be shaken and challenged and moved by this.
And how have your friends, because you did a preview in the Actors Centre in London, so I guess more people saw it then that you know. Has anybody come up to Edinburgh when you talk to friends?
Oh, and I got some friends coming up next week, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they think.
It would be, yeah. I had a few of them. Yeah, I think everyone thought it was, quite emotional, quite intense.
Yeah.
A lot of them thought it was quite funny. I think some of them really latched on to the stupidity of the guys in the play, like being able to close one eye and stare at the sun and just ridiculous feats of masculinity. So yeah.
Where's all that come from? Is that kind of based on your own experience?
No. I was looking at ridiculous feats of masculinity. There's so much amusing information online as to what it means to be a man, and I found many.
Again, it feels very authentic.
Well, you can, and I'm not dissing certain magazines. You can pick up certain men's magazines that we reference in the play, and you can look back just 7-8 years ago, and you can see these ridiculous things about to be a man. You need to look like James Bond.
Yeah.
You need to have this watch, or you need to wear this cologne and do that, and it's just prescribing this it's prescribing this unreal frame of masculinity and this kind of mould that a lot of young men try to adhere to, and I think that's what's toxic, and I think that's what's stopping a lot of young men living healthy, happy lives.
And do you think it is changing? You say that's
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's a generational thing as well. I think I'm 32, and I think my dad's generation is a product of his dad's generation, but I think we're getting a stage now where hopefully my children won't have to be subjected to these ideals that are the golden era of men. It's that classic thing, men go out to work and women stay at home, but we've moved on from that, but there's still certain element, I think we have generally, although some people still hold those beliefs. I think we're slowly moving on and slowly getting better, but I think it's going to take more conversations, more work in the arts such as Ripped, and people challenging these outdated ideals and more conversations.
And what else do you hope an audience will take away from this?
That's a really good question. Apart from what?
Apart from feeling that they can talk about this.
Yeah, I hope that it challenges people. It challenges people to think a little bit more of their own behaviours, of their own beliefs. I hope it constructs new ideas of masculinity in people's head. I hope people become more aware. I hope that it will instigate more men to maybe come forward and identify their own toxic behaviours from the play.
So let's talk about Edinburgh. How's it been back? So you came here 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah, 2013. It's changed.
Has it?
It only changed in 6 years.
It's bigger, I guess.
It's bigger. It's so much more on social media. I think when I was 6 years ago, I can't remember. I wasn't on Instagram, or I don't think I was on Twitter then. So I was just Facebook. So now it's full on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Social media is such an important thing. So yeah, it's just
that's made it easier.
A little bit, but it's also something else to check.
Yeah.
Then, so yeah, social media is really, really important, and getting the word out there.
And have you enjoyed it, being here, doing a one-man show?
Yeah, I have enjoyed it. I know, but it's Edinburgh Festival is just a circus and a jungle of, just ups and downs. It really is. A couple of days we've got a 5-star review, and then I've seen the audience numbers, and then I've spoken to an audience member afterwards, and then I've got some other news which has annoyed me or made me disappointed, and it's just constantly up and down. But I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere else. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world right now with Ripped.
So tell us, where can they see it and when are you on till?
So Ripped is at 1 o'clock, Cowgate Underbelly. It is playing until the 25th of August. Tickets available from Underbelly box office, Underbelly online, or the Ed Fringe website. We've got some tickets in the Half Price Hut, I believe. So I think you'd have to check which day we've got those in.
Nice. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for speaking to me.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Can I enjoy it?
Is that enjoyable?
Is it enjoyable?
I don't know. That's what I've been. I don't know. Resonated maybe?
You were brilliant.
Thank you very much. Cheers.